Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Lessons in Leadership. For those who are new here, our wonderful host, Dermot Buffini, is the CEO of Buffini Company, the largest training and coaching company in North America. Buffini Company holds a very unique position in the marketplace. They lead more agents, they coach and train more brokers than any other company in the real estate industry. They've had a major impact in our industry, and they've trained and coached more than 3 million professionals in 41 different countries. They've helped millions of agents, brokers, managers, and owners not only build great and lasting businesses, but also to build fulfilling lives. Dermot has been recognized as an RISMedia newsmaker, a finalist for the San Diego Business Journal's CEO of the Year, and under his leadership, the San Diego Union Tribune has recognized Buffini Company as one of the top workplaces in San Diego. We're honored to have Dermot here today, and he'll be taking leadership insight from Tami Bonnell. Please give a warm welcome to Dermot Buffini and Tami Bonnell.
Well, thanks a million, John. It's great to be back. Another session, Lessons in Leadership. And I'm excited today to have a great host guest on today who's got some great knowledge, great real world experience. You know, and when John and I started talking about this whole series, the goal of it is to support leaders. And, you know, leaders are rarely born, but most of the time I believe they're made. And there are great leaders surrounding us. There's also not so great leaders surrounding us, bad examples, but there's more good examples. And we want to learn from their experience. We want to learn from their knowledge, what they've learned. And that's what Lessons in Leadership is about. We got a great guest for you here today. And I was also just thinking this morning that this might be the most important series that we've done. And the reason is because we're already there. The things have changed. And it's going to be more important for you, whether you're an agent, whether you're running a team, a large company, to really focus on how you lead yourself and how you lead others. So we're going to have a great session today, John. Myself and Tami are going to have a great discussion. And then at the end here today, we're going to answer some of your questions. We already have questions from some of you already before we even started today. And I'm going to throw it back to John. So if you've got a question, just submit it there and we'll be able to, we'll try and answer as many as we can. So John, we'll see you in a few.
See you in a few. Enjoy.
All right. Well, let me take a moment to introduce my wonderful guest today, Tami Bonnell. And Tami has been in the real estate industry over 30 years. She is widely recognized as one of the top leaders in the industry. She has great knowledge, great experience. She is a lifelong learner. I'm told she reads in over 300 books a year. And she's also, not only does she kick butt as a leader, but she can literally kick your butt. She is a black belt in Taekwondo. So let me tell you something. I do what this woman asked me to do when I talk to her. So looking forward to hearing from her today. Tami, welcome to Lessons in Leadership.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time because I know you're on the road. You're at a women's conference in Huntington Beach?
In Huntington Beach, I'm at a Woman Up conference. Right.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time out to do this. So we're going to dive in here. I want to learn some things from Tami Bonnell today, and I know our audience does, and I got a list of questions for you. And I said, and then if you're okay with it, we can hang on and answer some questions from the audience. Sound good?
That'd be great.
So Tami, look, you and I met a number of years ago. We got a lot in common. You're one of 6 kids. I'm one of 6 kids. Growing up in an Irish family, I know that your father and your grandfather were in the construction business. I know that you got that blue collar mindset. And I know, like the Buffinis, you've worked your way from the ground up. So as you've learned about leadership, I guess I always start with the first question, which is like, who's a leader that you most admire and why?
You know, and there's actually several leaders that I really admire, but I think today I really want to talk about Erica Gillio. She's our Chief Operating Officer. And the reason is really simple. When we started working together, she actually was originally a district owner for Exit, and then she became a regional owner. And she gave up those unbelievable opportunities to do the right thing and really help the company grow. And she's always just led by example. She's been really consistent, and being a detail-oriented person, taking care of all the details, making sure to take care of the back room, but she still always put people first, understood that people were going through things at different times, whether it was the recession or COVID, and really put out, not letting them get away with murder, but certainly being fair, finding out what was going on in their world and their lives so that she really could be human first. And, we worked together from the very beginning. And I remember going through the worst recession since the Depression, none of us can forget, right? And we were literally, as a company, going to run out of money. And this company originated in Canada. Most of the people are in the US, but they have the best banking system in the world. So they did not have a single short sale or foreclosure in Canada. And so they really thought short sales were going to be short. And they really thought that all of them were going to close. And so they found themselves as a privately held company and found themselves that we were going to run out of money. Like you have 90 to 120 days, we're going to run out of money. And I remember sitting there with our founder and co-chairman, Steve Morris, and we were in Fredericton, New Brunswick doing an event. And she was at corporate headquarters and she said, this is an urgent call. And we went and we got on the line and she told us a story. And all of us at the same time said, all right, who are we as a company? And this company was built on human potential. And so we knew right then we weren't going to lay anybody off. We were the only people that were going to take a hit and pay were the people that were in leadership. We were responsible to take everybody a step further. And if we're responsible when things are good, then we're responsible when things aren't going so good. And so we took a hit and pay and we had to literally outsell and outthink our way out of the recession. And we did. And what was magical about that is, there were times when I was on the road and awake for 2 days in a row, and I'd be calling her at 10 o'clock at night, just keep my eyes open, I'm white lining, just keep my eyes open for a couple more minutes. And when she says she's all in, she really is all in. And one of the magical things that happened because of that, of all of us even being in agreement, was when COVID hit, it was back to that same thing. All right, who are we as a company? But when we reached out to all of our people to talk to them about what to do as soon as we were in lockdown, everybody raised their hand to see how they could help because they trusted us, because we made a commitment and we stuck with it during the recession. And so there was an incredible trust. And I can honestly say Erica is enormously responsible for that.
That's wow. Well, that's really cool. And, what I also think is really cool is, your progression from CEO now to co-chair of the company. But for you to look inside of your own company and recognize the great leaders that you do have. And one of the things I've seen in your company is the quality of the individual, that you guys really, really care. And Erica she's a powerhouse.
She absolutely is. She absolutely is. We're really lucky. The people that are in leadership in our company on average have been here for 17 years. For a company that's only 25 years old, that's pretty amazing. But everybody kind of got the job because they were doing that job already. They weren't afraid to do, there was no, that's not in my job description. It was really being passionate and just let's all take it to the next level so that we can all work together as a team, and everybody really respecting each other's lanes. And I think that that's really made a difference. And like Buffini and company, those leaders that have been there for a long time, all of us have been in real estate. So nobody's teaching you how to swim from a book, right? We have the experience.
Right. Yeah, well, I think I heard what you say about, Erica is she's all in and she's others focused. And, I think there are two really strong principles for people to take away from this, especially coming into this season. The question is like, are you all in and are you focused on others? Because you can lead from that position. You can lead from serving others. You can lead from the commitment of being all in. And I think you're fortunate with that. But I have a question for you that's, again, as people know, we're having a chat, and as things come to my mind, none of this is scripted. I don't know what you're going to say, but let me ask you this: what do you think is the key to longevity in leadership, and what has been why do you think you guys have been together so long, and what's kept you going for so long?
I honestly, we love and respect the people we work with, which I think is just amazing. The idea from the founder, Steve, was always, let's hire people for life. We want this to be their last place that they get a business card from. And so really being selective in the process up front, I definitely think that makes a huge difference. But you have to live your mission statement. And I mean, if our company was built on human potential, that means that every time we think about human beings, we really need to focus on the human being. And we want those people to grow, and that we want those people to become better. And everyone has to be on the same mission. And that's incredibly important in order to grow. So you need to have empathy. You definitely need to have confidence, which comes from competence. I think that's the experience that's in the industry. And you know, consistency isn't sexy, but it works. You need to be steady and consistent. And I think as leaders, you really need to care about what your people's dreams are. You know, where do they see themselves in the next 1, 3, 5 years? I believe strongly in 90% autonomy, let them run on their own, and about 10% whispering in their ear, telling them who they can become, showing them things that maybe they didn't see in themselves, even giving them exposure to experiences. You know, we'll have them come into broker owner training, and we have 20-somethings and 30-somethings and 40-somethings and 50-somethings and 60-somethings and 70-somethings, and give them an opportunity to be exposed to something, and maybe a light will go on. They'll see something that they didn't see in themselves. I know, you know, obviously just one example in your company is Jamie, right? Witnessing somebody grow it really into their own and really come full circle. But you have to expose them to things so that they can see that those possibilities are out there. And when you do, I think that there's a loyalty factor that comes with that too, because you have their best interest at heart.
You kind of throw them in the deep end a little bit and let them Okay, I'm curious about this. You're not just leading a large company. You got 3 kids. You've been the mom of 3. You're a grandma. By the way, you look fantastic. You haven't aged in years since I know you. And then also you can kill people with your bare hands. So how is it in leadership that you know, because it's that fine line, right? It's like, I want to grow them. I want to listen to them. How do you manage yourself when you're like, I want to do these moves on them, whatever it is? How do you not taekwondo them? What do you do? What's your process?
What's my process in what?
Not killing them. Not killing them.
Well, there's a rule in Taekwondo. I'm a 3rd-degree black belt. I'm in training to become a master. And there's a rule in martial arts, especially in Taekwondo, that you're a lion in uniform and a lamb when out. And so there are some rules that come with that. And there are definitely some rules that come with having the training that I have. So I'd be in more trouble than the average person if I lost my cool, that's for sure. But I think, you know, I think people want to follow somebody that is constantly growing. I think it's important for all of us to grow, and we need to grow personally and professionally. You know, the days, and I think it was, you know, the 70s and 80s that people were, you know, smoking and drinking and running themselves into the ground and only at work. They were only good in one segment of their life. And that doesn't mean that it's perfectly balanced all the time, but you really do have to prioritize where you're going to be. And you have to prioritize, is this the highest and best use of my time? Is this something that's going to really matter? So you have to pick and choose what you say yes to, and probably more importantly, you have to pick and choose what you say no to, right? But as a family, we raised our family with, you know, I've been a martial artist for 30 years, and we raised our family and went to Taekwondo with the kids 3 times a week for 15 years. And so that uninterrupted time in the car, but it wasn't perfect, right? Sometimes it was 7 o'clock in the morning on Monday and 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And I only had one other night during the week that we could all feasibly go. And then sometimes it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6:30, living like a normal family, right? But we kept the commitment. We might have had to rearrange the time, but we held on to the commitment. And I think that really made a difference. And you know, for my kids, as they got older, Sunday's always been family day for us. And, you know, there are times when there are conventions and things like that it's not feasible, but for the most part, it's been so. And I always ask my kids, what do you want to do this week? And so Megan might want to go to the library, Shane might want to go shoot, William might want to go lift weights, whatever that was, I would commit to it. And I would do it as early in the week as possible so that I never had to break a promise the whole time they were growing up. I might be running up the library steps with Megan at 5:30 on Saturday, but when they close at 6, but I didn't have to break a promise. And I'd try and do it as early in the week as possible so that they knew that they were a priority, right? That's a very good piece of advice, by the way. Hopefully that people take it seriously, because that really did make a huge difference on them not seeing the same 9 to 5 or those kind of things, but knowing that they were a priority.
That's great. And pivot to your priorities. Schedule them. Get out in front of them. You don't have to. You might make it with 5 minutes to spare, but you're making it. But you know, you said something that's really interesting, and I'm curious about. You know, what I hear is in that there's a time to be tough and a time to be tender. There's a time to be a lion. There's a time to be a lamb. Obviously, your discipline and your training of knowing that when you're in the suit, you got to be a lion. You know, how do you literally? How have you been? How do you balance that? How do you know when to be, even as a leader? At what point is it like, hey, it's time to me to get my suit on and deal with the difficult stuff?
Well, you know, and I think that you've got to have empathy, and that's not the same as sympathy. I'm not going to the same place as you. I can just appreciate where you are. And I think it's really important to set expectations and then help people to really self-realize. How do you feel like you're doing right now? Because usually once they get caught in that, they'll catch up and say, okay, probably not as good as I should be. And, you know, asking them why. So how do we get from point A to point B? You know, your series, 100 Days to Greatness, let's get back on track. And if they commit to it, then you have to set expectations. I expect you to commit to it too. And if you don't, we're going to have another more serious conversation. So, but I always try and start it with, depending on whether it's my family, then it's I love you enough to have this conversation. And sometimes with some of the people I work with, or I care enough about you to have this conversation. I want to see you do well, but this isn't acceptable. You know, we have to set expectations.
Yeah, I love that, because at the end of the day, you're having the hard conversation in a loving way. You're having the tough conversation in a way somebody can receive it. And ultimately resetting expectations of what you expect of them, and that, hey, you're not the savior, you can't do it for them. But I love that, because I think that's a great combination of the two. And also just even the discipline of that, you know, to learn that, you know, to be able to apply that in two worlds, you know, your hobby, your taekwondo, but then take it inside of your leadership is, I can see that's very similar. That's very consistent, you know.
Well, it's funny because I feel like in both, going into Exit Realty and going into the Dojang, that both places you cross the threshold to become better. And so you really do want to see people better their best, and you really want to see them rise to that occasion. But they've got to bring it too. It's got to be a win-win. It can't be that you're just pulling them along all the time. And I think that's one of the problems in real estate as a whole, right? People come into the business when everything's going crazy and everything's selling off the shelves. And so they never got into the right habits in the first place. And no one set a tone and said, here's the expectations. And if you do this, you'll be successful regardless of which cycle we're going through.
Right, yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about that here in a second, but it's funny that you bring this up, because I wasn't expecting to focus on this so much. But in training and coaching as many people as we do, excuse me, we've established a career path in real estate. You know, there's realtors who are trying to do black belt moves when they haven't started. I don't know what's the first belt you get in Taekwondo? Is it white or I don't know? It's white.
Yeah, you start off as a no belt and you go to white. Great.
So one of the things we're saying is, like, we have people trying to do black belt moves when they haven't got their white belt.
Right.
What is the progression, and how do those things relate to the industry, do you see? Like, is there?
You know, there really has to be an onboarding. And whether you have that as a company, you hire another company, you do a mix of the two, you really need to have an onboarding to get people set up into the right habits. They do it in any other type of business, right? But it's been missing a lot in this industry, and you have to do that type of onboarding. You know, I really admire when somebody comes in, even to the school, and they want to start off, you know, heading in the right direction. And some of them have some talent, but you know, you jump the gun too hard, too fast, and you're going to get hurt. And it's going to be a physical injury there, where, and it could be a very serious physical injury. You know, we're allowed headshots, and so. It could be a very serious physical injury in Taekwondo, but in here, you could actually harm the company, right? You could be a walking liability because you are not aware of what it is that's allowed and not allowed. So you need to understand the state or province, you need to understand what the laws are, but then you also need to know the right habits to get into. And then you start getting exposed to experiences, and now you can go back and forth with somebody to say, okay, this is what I'm running into, and this is what I'm running into. And but it's so important to really stay the course, really do get that onboarding in, or you'll never succeed. You'll have a reactive real estate world life, and you'll only make money when the market's going crazy, but you won't develop a reputation. You won't develop that ongoing clients for life or any of those things. And so, it's a tough enough business. You should learn how to do it right from the beginning.
Well, I've seen you guys make a big commitment to that with your coaching, your mentoring, your training, and then ultimately as leaders being available to those folks along the journey to listen to them, not just the promise, but to actually mentor, coach, provide the environment to them. And I think you guys have done an excellent job in that, because I do think, like you're saying, there's a lot of people, they don't get off to a best. They don't have the foundation. They don't have the belts they need on their way to the black belt. And you say you can get physically hurt over here, but you can burn out and be chewed up by this industry in a heartbeat by skipping the sequence.
Right. And you can even be a liability for the entire office, right? By jumping the gun and doing things that you're not allowed to do. So, but I do think that, this is a relationship business, and so you really need to bring that human element. You need to really bring that connection with your people, and know that they're a whole person. They're not just here doing real estate, right? They're a whole person. So you need to have empathy for where they are. And even, I think it's so important to find out what their dreams are,
Mm-hmm.
really to help them to achieve their dreams. It is the best feeling in the world when you see somebody become something they didn't even know they could be.
That's right. That's right. So let me ask you this. Where did the hunger for personal growth and development, the reading, is that just innate? Is that something that came to you? Where's that come from for you? And how does it serve you?
Well, I think that getting exposure to experiences, like we grew up without a whole lot of money. Actually, sometimes my dad made a lot of money and sometimes he didn't make any at all, right? So it was kind of like that. Sometimes we had breakfast for dinner and sometimes we had steak for dinner. It depended on it depended on how things were going at the time, right? And sometimes we had new clothes and sometimes we had things that we were handed down from kid to kid, which is kind of different when you have both boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
I think that as you start to see, and both of my parents were really good at that, of pointing out role models, pointing out people that they admired. And so as you start to do that, then you start to see, and I've always loved to read, and you can really disappear in a book. And if you don't have a lot of money, what an education you can get from reading, right? I'm an information junkie, I always have been, so I just love to get that information. But I think that you also want to improve and get better, and you realize if you choose, and I think it's a choice, if you choose to lead, you've got to stay growing, or what would be the reason for somebody to continue to follow you,
Yeah, for sure. Is there a couple of books that have stood out to you or had a major impact on you that you can share with us?
Well, I think The Dream Manager right now, there's a great book, The Dream Manager, and it's all about finding out what people's dreams are and helping them to get to it. Even if coming into real estate is so that they can earn enough money to actually afford to do what it is that they have for a dream, but helping them to get there and giving people an opportunity to be able to dream, and that they're not just black and white, they're not just work and home, that they really can have a very full life. And I truly think that's the difference between happiness and fulfillment. There's a great book by Steve Simmons, it's called The Blue Fishing. And that book is, I'm a huge fan of Good to Great and a lot of the other old classics, but Blue Fishing is awesome on just really challenging yourself to keep growing and think bigger and do bigger things and expose other people to that too, so that they can really see, one of the biggest weaknesses we have, I think, even as a country, is there are people that haven't been exposed to any experiences. I spoke to probably 1,000 Girl Scouts during COVID, and I asked every single one of them, how many of you met a female CEO? And not one single child raised their hand. And that doesn't mean that they want to become a CEO. It just means they need to be exposed to something besides their own neighborhood or their own community, so that they can see that there are other possibilities out there. I'm old enough that when I was growing up, you were going to be a teacher, a nurse, or a stewardess, they're flight attendants now, but they were stewardesses then, or you were going to be a waitress. That was those were the targets, and I said, I'm not going to do any of those.
That's awesome. I mean, it's a big deal, and you are great role models. So is Erica. So is Annette. There's so many great females ladies in this industry who are, blazing the trail and get it. They get this business, they get the clients, they know what needs to be done. And I think that's what's great about real estate. It's such a great vehicle. I've talked to my daughter about it. She's 19. She's like, what about me in real estate? I think she'd do great. And it's a great industry, I honestly think, as an example of what's possible.
Absolutely. I mean, you can really build true family wealth if you choose to, but you can also choose how you want to have it play out. What do you want to do? Do you want to list and sell real estate? Do you want to own a brokerage? Do you want to manage? Do you want to own a region? Do you want to coach people? There's just so many different facets to be able to get into, but it's responsible for a huge chunk of the world's wealth. So it's not a bad place to be. I don't know anybody that isn't interested in learning more about real estate. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily want to list and sell it, but they're fascinated by it. I don't know very many people who wouldn't be happy to own more of it if that was an opportunity, So It's a good to be in.
All right. Well, I got 2 good book recommendations for you. I'm open to more. You can send them on to me. But and this is the part of it is. It's like, what are you feeding on? What are you learning? What are you reading? I think that's the benefit of something like this, is that we get to learn from each other. And so thanks for sharing those. As we're heading into this next season, I know we're gonna bring John on in a few minutes and take about 15 minutes to answer some questions. But let me ask you this: as you gear up for this season, what are the things, what's your mindset? What are the attributes you're looking to, raise up inside of your team, or to the things you're going to focus on to navigate? Things have changed. Gas prices are here. There's war in Ukraine. There's elections coming up. What's your take, and what's your mindset?
Well, I have a great mindset, and I think I'm very fortunate just because I start off my day, I really practice SAVERS, so it's silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing.
Okay, say that again. Let's grab that. Silence,
affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, writing. And so I'm in control of my day from the start. It's not my cell phone, and it's not it's not the internet, and it's not the television. I'm in control of my day from the very beginning, and we really strongly recommend that to our people. But I think that probably the biggest thing, and we definitely do it as a company, we focus on, and that's the most important thing, I think, when you're heading into a changing market, we focus on the solution, not the problem. Mm-hmm. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. I did an interview with somebody talking about affordable housing, and they wanted to just go down every single negative path. And I stopped him and just said, whoa, wait, the California Association of Realtors is providing grants. There's Home for USA. I just went through like 15 things in a minute of all the things that are out there. Why don't we brainstorm and duplicate them? Instead of talking about where the problem is, why don't we brainstorm and duplicate them? If you have a 30,000 foot view, so you know where the trends are, because real estate's always being done, right? People move because of their circumstances. If I have a 30,000 foot view, so I know where trends are, and I have a 2,000 foot view of my province or state, and then I have a street level view of what's going on where I am, what's selling and what's not, and I have built a really good relationship with my clients so that staying connected, I'm not going to lose no matter what happens in the marketplace. The people that are going to lose are the people that, the 100,000 plus that jumped in over the last year because they thought it was going to be easy. Yep. And the people that are out of the habit of being consistent and marketing themselves and connecting with people and all that, those are the people that are going to have a tough time. But I would say having that right mindset, but constantly educating yourself too. I call it a dirty dozen, but having a dozen people that work on the business, not in it, coaches, appraisers, home inspectors, mortgage companies, title companies, attorneys, stay ahead of the curve on what's going on and where there's problems, what's changed, so that you're always literally a walking thesaurus of real estate every time you're around somebody, and you can see a window of opportunity before somebody else does. And then you'll always be in control of your business and your income.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to go back and pick up something though from you here in a second. I'm not letting you off the call without getting the last couple. But what I heard you say is, and it's true. I think as leaders, you get paid to resolve problems.
That's right.
And see opportunities. And not deny reality. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's either, it's like even a turkey can fly in a hurricane, right? So it's like, great, that's a hot market. Now it's changed. Now the hurricane's not blowing. You find out who the turkeys are, right?
Right.
You want to be an eagle, you want to be a turkey. So I love that. Focus on the outcomes, the opportunities. There's always a solution, and not get bogged down, and surround yourself with those folks who can deal with the reality of today, but are looking ahead. I love the ritual you talked about. I want the last couple. What I have is silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise,
reading,
and
writing.
Scribing. Yeah, love it. And I think the last part is so important to getting clear, isn't it?
Right.
Get quiet, clear your mind.
Yeah, this is part of the miracle morning, but I think that it's, so many people wake up and it's kind of like Pavlov's dogs. They're sleeping with their cell phone, and their cell phone is their alarm clock. And so it's a very slippery slope to turn it around and all of a sudden start looking at texts and emails, and you haven't even stepped out of bed yet.
You're done.
You just let your phone control your day. You just let technology control your day. You just let social media control your day. I have a Batman alarm clock. I don't need an alarm clock very often. I have, I tell myself what time I need to wake up, and typically I wake up about a half an hour before I tell myself. So I'm lucky that way. But on the couple of days when I have almost no sleep and I'm concerned with a deadline, I have a Batman alarm clock, and it literally puts the bat signal on the ceiling and tells me it's time to save Gotham.
I want one.
I've actually been trying to find them, but I can't find them anymore. So I'm hoping this thing doesn't come apart. But then it also makes you wake up with a smile on your face, right?
I love it. Well, here's what I love about that. There is a common theme with great leaders. They have a process for themselves first, and they do have routines. And what I love about that is, before you lead others, you've led yourself. Before you help others get clear on their goals, you've walked through your own process so you can actually be clear. You can be ready. And I love that. I think that's so powerful.
It's so important to not get caught up. You can get caught up in all the chaos, and you really need to be in a grounded place in order to help someone else. You really need to be in a grounded place in order to add value. If you're super stressed or you're really strong, you're not going to be able to help that person the same. And they're certainly not going to look at you the same if it looks like you're freaking out over what's going on. You're not the person for reassurance for them, right? You're not the person to deliver hope.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I could talk to you all day. You and I, we're never short of our chats. But listen, number one, we're going to answer some questions in a second, but I want to tell you something. I'm so glad that you're out there speaking, that you're out there at the Women's Conference. You're a wonderful example of leadership, and I really appreciate all you've shared today. And here's the thing I know about you, and the guests I try and have on here are the people who, they don't just talk about it, but they live it and they do it. And more importantly, they are always looking to help other people get to the same place. And you're a wonderful example to all of us. So thank you for sharing this has been great.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, you ready to answer a few questions? Should we bring Mr. Featherston back on? I know that there's a lot of questions from the audience, so let's see how many we can get through here, Tami. John,
sure.
Back.
Well, let me first say thank you both for an extremely stimulating conversation. You touched on a number of different subjects, and you caused a lot of our viewers to send in some really interesting questions. So let's dive right into it for both of you. Now, the thoughts on leadership. People want to know your thoughts on the current marketplace, the inventory, the affordability, inflation, the factors affecting us today. What does our mindset need to be? That's the question they want to hear from both of you. Let's start with Tami.
I think we need to be more resilient than we've ever been. And you need to, just like we were talking about being in those right habits from the very beginning, you can't let the news control your day. You can't you need to control what you can control. You can control your habits. You can control the message that you're giving to everybody. And there's always transactions being done. There's always real estate being done. So focus on the solution and focus on what people are doing right so that you can do more of that instead of getting caught up. I think that that's really the most important thing to do. I wrote a white paper on affordable housing that is coming out, and it's really just to share that there are things that are happening all over North America for affordable housing that people literally could brainstorm and duplicate about. And the same thing with being able to do other real estate. If you know what's going on with people that are out there and you know what there are for options for them, and you hear about something new that's working, part of our job as leaders, all three of us, is to be a good forecaster and be able to deliver that information so that people know where there are possibilities.
Love it. Yeah, I totally agree. And just to latch on to a little something Tami said there that I think is huge is, I just had one of my mentors, Werner Steffen. He passed away on Friday, 86 years of age, Lord rest his soul. Wonderful man, so important to me in my development. But he used to say to me, Dermot, every day, he said, you need to read the newspaper and you need to read your Bible because you need to know what both sides are saying. So every day I read the headlines. Now, here's the problem. There's no good headlines coming our way in the next. If it doesn't bleed, it's not going to lead. Isn't that the old saying in the media business, John?
That is.
It changes every 9 seconds. We don't know the source. We don't know if it's fact. And here's what I would tell you is when you read the headlines, the question you have to ask, how does that apply to me? There are publicly traded companies laying off people left, right, and center. We're hiring a Buffini Company.
We are too.
That doesn't apply to RISMedia. That doesn't apply. We're not in the same place. By the way, we've also planned and prepared in peacetime. You bleed less in war, right? Because why? You guys have seen the recession. So you're 30 years in the business. John, you're 30 years. How long are you in the business, John? You've seen every cycle.
44, but that's who's counting.
So here's what I'm going to say to you is, instead of focusing on the headlines, how about you create your own headlines? We're talking to our clients right now about, hey, be aware of this. That's fine. You know what's going on. You got something to talk about. But to hell with it. Be very wary of them. And how about you create your own headlines? Because a lot of people will ask, they'll play small at this time. They'll shrink. They'll wait for the headlines to change. This is go time. This is when businesses are built. This is when fortunes are made. This is when businesses are grown. Because somebody puts their head down and goes, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know what I need to do. And my customers need me to be in that place. So I'd say beware of the headlines, create your own headlines. And then Tami is a product of self-investment. I don't know how, I'm sure you've invested $1 gazillion in your own personal growth and development. Warren Buffett is getting ready with a war chest of cash to catch this market as it dips. And now is the time for the best to invest. So what do you need to invest in? What books do you need to read? I got 2 today, The Dream Manager and Blue Fishing. Okay, great. I'm going to get them today. What classes do you need to take? What skill do you need to develop? 70% of the realtors and folks in the market today have never seen this market. But as you said, Tami, there's opportunity ahead for those who are looking for it. So that's what I would say your mindset has to be, create your own headlines and everything Tami said.
Well, that's great. And I'm going to go back again to Tami and you, Dermot, because what I'm hearing and what the questions are coming out are saying, you both are saying you need to listen, you need to learn, you need to adapt, and you need to execute. You've both been through countless cycles. What's your advice to an agent who's 4 or 5 years into our industry? They've never really been through a cycle. How do you advise them to get through this tough cycle? Tami?
This is the first thing I would do, and I can tell you I've broken a couple world records in sales, and there's nothing fancy about me. And I can tell you that these are things that I do steadily, and it doesn't matter where the market is, but I can tell you that when the market shifts, it's even more important. Number 1, book off 4 hours once a month to work on your business and on your life, not in it, so that you can maximize on every single opportunity. So you look ahead halfway through the month, book off 4 hours and look ahead for the next 6 weeks. So here we are at, in August, book and look ahead all the way to the end of September. Do the same thing halfway through to September, all the way to the end of October. Who should I be talking to? Who should I be learning from? What information do I need? Look at the people that your top 25 golden people that you've worked with. When's the last time I had a conversation with them? What's going on in their life? You cannot disrupt personalization and skill set But when you really work on it so that you're going to have an open house, who should I be inviting? Who should I be talking to? What should I be doing with this? Having allies, I call it a dirty dozen, but a dozen people that work on the business, kind of your own private BNI group. Find out what changed in the mortgage business last year, what's going to change this year, so that you're ahead of the curve and you're constantly providing information that's valuable and that's important so that they know that you're the expert. Look at where your strengths are. We all have different strengths and we're all only good at a few things. You know, my mom used to even literally tell me just to mouth the words to happy birthday, don't sing, right? And so, you know, if you're not good at something, that's not a lane to be in. Don't do it, right? But you have certain skill sets and they might even lean you towards a lane that you can really be an expert in. So book off 4 hours once a month to work on your business, not in it. Find a group of allies with excellent reputations so that you can literally have a whole big picture of what's going on out there, because each one of them will have something. It's kind of like not everybody learned algebra from the same book, right? Some people had to be taught it from a different angle. I know I had to teach Shane and, you know, football analogies. And so these people help you to fill in all the blanks so that you're really the expert. And when that's the reputation you get, you will always do business.
Love it.
That's fantastic. And I think the way you describe things, Tami, as an athlete, is very interesting because you're not only a success on the athletic front, but in the business front. Let's go to Dermot. Dermot, can you add to that, please?
Not a whole lot other than a couple of thoughts, which is number one, first of all, the only I say, Tami, you're not telling the truth. You're very special. And so that's why you're making sales records and you're growing yourself and you're able to speak at other people's, you're able to adapt and you're able to adjust. But at the end of the day, here's what I heard you say. Get a mentor. There's mentorship everywhere. I know this, honestly, if I need something or if I had something I had to problem solve, I could call either of you two and you would gladly share with me your perspective and what you think. We're surrounded by a whole lot of information that's not applicable. It's not relevant. There is nothing new. You talk to people who've been there, done that, and they can say to you, okay, if I'm you, here's what I'm doing. And so find a mentor. This is going to sound self-serving, but I got something for you guys if you want it. Get a coach. Now's the time to make an investment. Buffini Company is one option. There's lots of coaches. You've got to figure out who you identify with. The first question I ask, and I asked Tami, is like, who's a leader that you admire? And the reason is because you know, Tami described Erica. She could have described herself because that's their philosophy. That's how they do business. That's who you admire. Same way with a coach and a mentor. Look and see who around you. Say, John Featherston's a guy I know who does business the right way. I'm going to talk to him and pursue them. So I would 100% agree with that. Get a coach and make the investment. It'll be worth it. The third thing is this. You said it. We launched a product. We've had it around 20 years, but we've made it available called Real Strengths. And the goal of it is to help people identify what their selling style is, their communication style, and how they serve people. And it's free. I don't have a plug. I don't have a link for it. If you want it, we can get it to the audience, John, if you want it. Take you 10 minutes. But it will give you some information that just says, hey, maybe you should word them out. You don't need to sing the tune, Tami. I love that. By the way, what great parenting that is. I love you, but could you just word it, not sing it? It doesn't make the birthday very happy. So focus on your strengths, know what they are. Tami, I know you play to your strengths. I try and play to my strengths. John, you do the same. We've got great people around us and great teams. So what is your selling strength? What's your serving style? Your selling style, your serving style, and your communication style. You get those three things dialed in, you're going to be good. So if you want it, I'll send you a link, John. We can send that to the audience. It's
absolutely.
I would love it.
I'd love it. You know what? Before I get to the next question, another book for everyone, and it really, I think, hits home because it talks about Build to Last. It's by Jim Paris and Jim Collins. I'll tell you what, it's a great book, but it talks about organizations that have made the test of time, just like Tami and Exit, and just like Dermot and Buffini Company. They've more than survived, they've flourished over the test of time. Next question. This question, I believe, is coming in from a relatively small brokerage owner or a manager of an office. And they ask, how do we effectively lead and move our agents forward in business without seemingly being overly pushy or micromanaging?
I really think that the smartest thing to do is to sit down with them and find out what their dreams and what their goals are and put a plan together. We're going to plan this together, what the activities are going to be. But then you've got to see if they're willing to do it. There are a lot of people out there that aren't willing to do the work. And that is a weakness in this industry that people, I have a saying, saving people is for Sunday. And that they put 80% of their time into the bottom 20% instead of putting 20% of their time into the top 80%. We do have a lot of mid-range people out there that let's sit down, let's put in a plan together. You commit to this and I'll commit to this. And then I'll meet with you once a month and we'll go over and see where you're at. Or once every couple of weeks, depending on where their time frame is. But then they're committing to something so that you're not having to push and ask them to do something. If they're really struggling and they're not willing to do things, you know, I'm a firm believer that you always give everybody an extra chance. Hey, look, I really care enough about you to have this conversation. We're gonna do an exercise determining over the next 100 days whether I'm the right person to get the most and the best out of you, whether I'm the right office to get the most and the best out of you. Because then when you go back, it's almost like the old Seinfeld thing, right? It's not you, it's me. I'm afraid that we're not the right place to get the most and the best out of you, because then you can at least let them leave with a little bit of grace. But you can't spend your time with people that aren't willing to do it, because that's going to impact your reputation. If you're a broker owner or a manager, it's going to impact your reputation. But I find a lot of times it's really surprising when you give somebody an extra chance and say, let's work on this for the next 100 days, and you're willing and they're willing. Sometimes they just want it to really matter. And sometimes they'll surprise you and there'll be an incredible loyalty because you cared enough to go that extra step.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. Dermot?
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, at the end of the day, couldn't agree more. You can't make somebody into something they're not. You can't make somebody be passionate about something they're not passionate about. It takes time. It takes time as a leader, and we don't have time because we're under pressure. There's money. What Tami's describing is, as a leader, the most valuable thing you can give somebody to succeed is your time. Rick DeLuca, one of my mentors, now with Exit Realty. Okay, Rick, you say, don't try to be the answer to people's prayers if you don't know what they're praying for. And I think that's exactly, it takes time to sit down with people. Tami said it, what are they dreaming about? Coming up with, that's the alignment of their dream, the environment to achieve the dream, and the third part is the focus on the previous two, so you can the distractions are nothing to do with what you're dreaming about. The distractions are nothing to do with what you're trying to achieve. The distraction is not in the environment that's going to help you achieve that. So I love what you said, Tami. I think that's bang on. That's all that's needed.
Well, here's a question that's come in, and I appreciate the answers. I think our audience is really digging what you guys have to say. Okay, over the last few years, our industry has changed dramatically. Okay, so this question has to do with leadership, and how has leadership changed? In your opinions, what are the top 3 things it takes today to be a good leader?
I think that you have to have empathy. You really have to focus on the human element. You know, one of the wild cards out of this pandemic is that almost roughly 70% of first-time home buyers that bought during the pandemic have buyer's remorse. Ouch. Ouch on an industry.
Tami, repeat that again for our audience, because that is a powerful statement.
70+% of people that were first-time home buyers during the pandemic have buyer's remorse. They spent too much money, they borrowed from parents and grandparents, and they don't know when they're going to be able to pay it back. They're starting to see that maybe the house isn't worth as much. They have a much further commute, and now they're not around any family support because they had to move further out in order to be able to afford something. They were reactive. They weren't proactive. They were reactive. They waived appraisals. They waived home inspections. They did some sight unseen and just had this whole thing. They're realizing now how much more important it is to have a real estate professional on your side that can even just give you some good sage wisdom, right? Or ask you the right effective questions so that you can make a decision that's right. And so I think that you need to really have the human element. You need to have empathy. You need to have confidence in this industry. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of disruptors. They don't have real estate experience. They've never been through these cycles. They know how to build a tech company. And I'm not knocking anyone's skill set, but you need to really be able to have both so that you can carry people through and help them on the other side. And I think that people still, regardless of what's going on out there, they want to grow. And so if you can tie it to their dreams, 90% autonomy, 10% whispering in their ear, hey, you know, maybe if you tried something just a little bit to this angle, you're going to just get that much more production out of it. And I think that will really make a huge difference. But people are craving leadership. They want to matter so bad. And the pandemic, I think, really woke that up in a tremendous amount of people.
I think you're absolutely correct. Spot on. Dermot?
You're going to sound like we rehearsed all this. So it's, yep, 100%. And for me, I can't say 3 things. I have to give 4 things because I'm a Buffini. I have to say an extra piece, but it's simple to remember. And I think it kind of gives you the templates and the operating system to work in and everything that we just talked about and what Tami said previously. So as a leader and leader of yourself, leader of your company, your teams, this will work in a relationship. This will work with your kids and their development. Number 1 is clarity. Tami said it. She's hammered it today. Who are you? What are you trying to do? What are you dreaming about? What are your goals? Okay. The next one is consensus. There's empathy in consensus. I want to understand what you like, what you think. Are you on board with this? Does that resonate with you? What's missing? It's a consensus as a team to what do we believe in? And these are in order. You need clarity first, then you need consensus, and then you commit. You have to make a commitment. And the clarity has to be fought for every day because there's icebergs out there. There's things that are trying to disrupt you. There's headlines out there trying to throw you off. There's people whispering in your ear. Like Tami said, it's like, get away from those people. They're problem finders. They're not problem solvers. The consensus has to be facilitated by you because you're the leader. And it gets buy-in from people. You don't want to get bogged down in it. I can go with 51% consensus and take the responsibility for the 49% unknown. The commitment must be demanded. When you hit the battlefield, when you go to do it, no, it is time to put your taekwondo suit on and become a lion. And then the last part is to continuously communicate and consistently the clarity of what you have clarity on, the consensus of what you agreed on, and what you committed to as a unit, as a team, as an individual. And I think if you do those 4 things, you can lead any size. You can lead yourself, you can lead any size team, any size brokerage, any size company. And it has to be consistently monitored because the battlefield tests the battle plan and it gives information and feedback and allows you to stay flexible as you adjust to things changing. So, sorry, a little long, went for 4, not 3.
No,
but
it's very, very interesting. You're both the perspectives I think our audience are finding very interesting. Staying power. I think there's a couple of questions along this line. I'd love to hear both of your insights on this. Tami, your brand was founded in 1996 by Steve Morris. And if you haven't met Steve Morris, he's one of the most interesting characters and icons in our industry. He's a change artist, much like many of the people that you and I and all 3 of us know in the industry. But he's a real change artist. He's paid out, your organization has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars of residuals as an integral part of your business model, okay? What is the staying power going forward of your business model? And what do you think the staying power of the brokerage model is in the real estate industry going forward?
Well, obviously I believe pretty strongly, or I wouldn't be here, in the staying power of exit. But you know, that opportunity for residual income so that people aren't just as good as when they represent a buyer or represent a seller. They get rewarded for the percentage of the company they build, and it's single level residuals. It's not multi-level marketing. It's not tied to stock. It's not tied to shareholders. It's your own personal efforts, and it's not paid down to everybody else. It's not in a pyramid. It's literally, I get paid for my own efforts. I do the work. I'm going to get rewarded for that work. But we focused on them having a good present and a good future. So we teach them not just how to invest that residual income if they choose to invest that residual income, because a lot of them have done that in investing in real estate or investing in people or investing in charities, the things that are a real strong priority for them. But it also pays them in retirement, which obviously a lot of people in real estate are getting a little bit older so that they can actually have a retirement plan. You know, what's that running joke? Old brokers never die, they just get listless. We actually can give them an opportunity so that they can continue to gain income. And probably more important for a lot of them is that when they pass, they actually have beneficiary residuals so that they can leave a legacy behind. And that seems to be a real priority for people. We've paid over $500 million in residual income. So, you know, when you sit there and say, will this thing work? I think $500 million speaks pretty loudly. And you know, that's a tremendous amount of money, and that's going right back to our people. Could they do anything with that? And so if they introduce, forget splits, forget all the things that everybody has going on everywhere, and everybody's talking about a margin and all freaking out over everything. If I can get you to join my company and I can keep you and I can help you to grow as an individual, you're going to stay. If everything's perfect in Camelot, people aren't going to go look in another direction. If they have steady, consistent income coming through without it being their own personal sweat every day, listing and selling real estate, so they have paychecks between paychecks, and they have this opportunity for future tense, it really does make a difference. But as time goes on and you start to hear the stories, we've had people leave to go get a hip replaced and they've been in retirement for that period of time, and then they've come back in and all the residuals went from 7% back up to 10%. And so they deem retirement however they want. They've been with parents when they've been able to be with their parents when they transitioned. They've been able to be home with a newborn longer than they were before. They've been able to do any type of physical thing, a hip replacement, going backpacking across Europe, whatever it is that they want for choices, and it's giving them choices. So I think that people are really looking at, you know, if we look at even just human beings since the pandemic, and it doesn't matter if we talk about the Great Resignation or what we talk about, they want more. They want more money, they want more moments, they want more opportunities, they want more relevance, they want better relationships, they want more experiences. And so when they can have that cash flow and that flexibility, it really does make a difference. And how reactive the market was tells me, and the amount of buyer's remorse, by the way, baby boomers, 35% of them have buyer's remorse. They don't like the sound of crickets. They thought they were gonna. And so that it really tells you that the need for somebody to be there and be a professional is really, really important. And even being a part of the community, I believe that it's really important. We need, and people being around other people. People really do need to be with people. People want to matter. That doesn't mean we need to have the Taj Mahal for an office, but I do think that it's really important to have a presence.
So, you know, if I read you right, and I think those of you who know Exit and know yourself and your management team, you have been true to your mission since the birth of the company. Yet you've adapted. Okay, what would you say? And then bring Dermot back in on this as well. What would you say to an agent out there or an agent team in today's marketplace where listings are a challenge? How do you get more referrals in today's marketplace?
Yeah, so, you know, you can go out and you can buy leads, or you can prove yourself in the marketplace, right? Or you can even do a combination of all those things, right? But if you serve your clients incredibly well, every single one of them is good for at least 2 referrals a year. What happens is people list and sell real estate, and especially in this crazy reactive market, and they go through this courtship process, they get married the day of the closing and they're divorced the next day. So if they stay consistently following up and following through with all of the clients they've dealt with, if they stay consistent in their community, they stay educating themselves, and like I mentioned before, having allies, every one of those people are good for at least 2 referrals a year too. You add value to their life, they're going to add value to yours. You help them to do a better job and be in more control of their business, they're going to help you to do the same. And there's a very strong respect line in that. This is a relationship business. And that doesn't mean that I just need to have a great personality and be pretty good at keeping up with deodorant. It means that I really need to know what I'm doing. And that I know that I took it personal enough to find out, what are your real estate dreams? Where do you see yourself in the next 1, 3, 5 years? You know, you can really control the narrative if you're focusing on being excelling at this business, but you have to stay consistently following up with everybody.
Focused. Dermot?
Well, obviously, as you can say, I think we've made a commitment to working by referral at Buffini Company for 26 years. So we've learned a lot about it, and Tami's nailed it. And the big thing is to ask. So you got to ask. Number two is you have to ask the right people. The third thing is you have to be referable. If you're not referable, you're not getting referrals. So how do you get referrals? By showing up, a commitment to serve, and then doing what you said you're going to do, and then dig in when it gets difficult and reassure people along the journey of your professionalism to say, this is why I'm here. I'm the doctor. You're the patient. I got you. And then the other side is when to ask. You have to ask, you know, again, to quote Rick DeLuca, he says you can't sell in a cold room, you know, it's warm. The person you're working with, the person who trusts, the person who knows you, they're putting their name to you. The person you're working with right now is the best person, or the person you've served, or the person who's most excited about you. But what I found is the biggest thing is that people do not ask. And we've done surveys with agents and looked at things, and we have a 23-1. For every 20 people you talk to and ask for referrals, you will get 3. And out of the 3, 1 will close. So whatever that means to you, if the 1 close means 30 grand to you, you know what 20 calls is going to result in to the right people, where you've asked them the right way, is going to result in your business. And nobody asks. The truth of the matter is very few people ask, because they don't want to be a bother. They don't want to be pushy. And the person who is pushy and less professional and won't do a great job, 9 times out of 10 is not afraid to ask. This is a side note, it's just a funny story, but I had a massage at the place I'm a member of last week. Okay, and I admired this kid for doing it. And it was a dude, and he was a young guy, and he was working on my hamstrings and, you know, getting me loose. And at the end of it, in this exclusive resort, he said to me, well, I hope that worked out for you. He goes, I have a question for you. I go, yeah. He goes, do you have solar? And I was like, now, I have never been asked that at the back of a massage before, but let me ask this. Do you think that kid's is he going to succeed in some level? Absolutely he is, because he's asking.
Right.
You need some coaching of knowing when to ask and the correct environment to ask, but that dude is going to get business because he asked. He might have asked the wrong way at the wrong time. So how do you get more referrals? Ask, take some training, get some help, and trust it. People need to know that you care and that you want their business and you want to serve them.
Well, if I could, we've run out of time, which is our most valuable commodity. And I found it very interesting today. I want to thank both of you, Dermot and Tami, and everyone that's joined us on this webinar, because as the book I mentioned, Built to Last, both of these organizations, Tami at Exit and Dermot at Buffini Company, have built organizations that are not just lasting, they're adapting and helping countless thousands of professionals reach their own personal goals and objectives. And what Tami said earlier about helping her people plan for success. I would suggest anyone tuning in and listening to this, reach out and ask about the residuals, because it's a very interesting and successful ingredient that we don't hear enough about. And with that, I'd like to thank both of you again and the audience. And I want you all to mark your calendars for our final Lessons in Leadership with Dermot and Buffini at October 5th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And that's our last one of 2022, when he'll be joined by another very incredible guest. And I hope whoever the guest is, I hope they watch this when they say, wow, I've got big shoes to fill, and I've got to get a Batman light. Shine up.
I agree.
Batman's alarm clock light, because if that's what's helping Tami to be as successful as she is, we should all find them and get them.
Thanks so much, John. Thank you, Tami. Awesome job.
Thank you so much.
Great
Great
stuff.
to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.